Thanks for listening to Entre Nido, the show where we help you live the Nido life. By listening to Entre Nido, you'll learn how to develop multiple streams of income. You'll hear amazing stories and takeaways from professionals in their field. And you'll learn more about yourself and how you're wired. The average person spends 90,000 hours at work in their lifetime. Student loan debt is at an all-time high, and 41% of all divorce is based on finances. If you feel like you're surviving, but you wouldn't exactly say you're thriving, then you've come to the right place. Whatever stage of life you're in, Entre Nido is here to help you be a better entrepreneur. Break out of that rat race and start living your Nido life today. And now introducing your Nido host, Matt Neff.
Welcome back to Entre Nido. I am your host, Matt Neff, and on today's show we have speaking coach and Enneagram 9, Mike Pacchione. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. This is Matt Neff, host of Entre Nido. So glad you are listening in. Today we have Mike Pacchione. Mike has been featured on such podcasts as Story Brand with Donald Miller and Typology with Ian Cron. You're going to love the content that he has for us today, so stay tuned. Today's topic is your public speaking anxiety might not be about public speaking. It's a really interesting title. I actually couldn't fit it on the Instagram post, so I shortened it. But thank you for showing up anyways. Here's a little bit more about Mike. For 7+ years, Mike flew the world giving presentations on how to give presentations. It's super meta. He trained close to 10,000 people from some of the most revered companies in the world. He presented at conferences, at tech companies, at startups, at the federal government. He's presented to 1,000 people. He's presented to 5 people. He's presented when his laptop froze, when his slides didn't work, when there was a fire alarm mid-speech. He's presented on 2 hours of sleep. He's presented jet-lagged. He's presented when there's no coffee to be found. He's essentially been in every speaking situation there is. He loves to share the secrets with our listeners here at Entre Nido. Mike has worked with such brands as Starbucks, Nike, Twitter, State Farm, Google, and more. For more info on Mike and his work, check out miketalks.co. That's MikeTalks.co. One more time, MikeTalks.co. I almost sang it there. Also, make sure you check out the links that were provided in the interview. Those are in the show notes, where we give a mention to Vanessa Van Edwards, who's doing incredible things with speaking and understanding the science of people. And as always, thank you for listening to the show. Here are 3 quick and easy ways to help Entre Nido. Number 1, share this episode with a friend or on social media. Number 2, leave us a written review on iTunes, 5 stars preferably. And number 3, consider supporting us with a one-time or monthly gift through Patreon or the Cash App. Now on to today's interview with Mike Pacchione. Welcome back to Entre Nido. My guest today is the Mike Pacchione. Mike, welcome to the show.
The Mike Pacchione. If you Google search me, there's also a football, I think maybe a Pee Wee football coach in Warrington, Pennsylvania. So
oh, really? Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I don't do that a lot for people. So you can do that in one instance. One instance, since I'm so close to Columbus, Ohio, is the Ohio State University. We pride ourselves on the. So they really try to hit that the hard. The other the that I put in front of it is the Mike Michalowicz from Profit First, and he had the same reaction. He laughed first. That was the first thing. So I love laughing. Like I mentioned off air, I'm an Enneagram 7. Let's have fun today. Let's not just make this another check the box.
Love laughing. It's hilarious.
I like the first interaction you had when I messaged you for being on the show. I'm going to find it really quick because this will be fun. Kind of gave you my, hey, Happy New Year. This was January. And you said, hey, Matt, thanks for being in touch. I'm an extrovert who sits in a house with his dog all day unless I have coaching calls or podcast requests. Long way to say, sure, I'd love to. And I loved that message. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. And so then I just, we had to wait until, things got synced up. But I was like, I can't wait to talk to Mike. Maybe it's something about Mike, because one of my favorite interviews, we talked to a lot of great people, but one of my favorite interviews was Mike Michalowicz. And so this one will be no different.
That is such a funny thing that I wrote. Literally, I was just upstairs and my dog is sleeping in the sun. And I was talking to him. I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy, I got to leave you up here.
Well, and then I was confused because I was rushing downstairs to get my podcasting, nerdy podcasting equipment ready. Cause I'm like, does he want to record right now? I'm like, wait, no. Oh, okay. Cause you said I'd love to. And I thought, okay, well, let me get ready. I got to go get my stuff, but so I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Love your stuff. Love Story Brand, all things, Story Brand, of course. I listened to your episode a bunch, and we're going to put that in the show notes as well to share it out, as well as links. But before we get too far, would you please promote away anything you want to share with our audience?
Wow, we do this up front. Yeah. Well,
Bookends, front and back for us.
yeah, I coach people one-on-one with presenting. So my background, I presented all over the world, trained more than 10,000 people at places, big and small places that whatever you are listening to this on, computer, phone, iPad, whatever, like I have helped someone involved in that. I've done it at places that are pretty top secret. Like they seized my phone when I came in the door.
Nice. So Disney World.
Totally. Yeah. And my favorite thing in the world is helping people one-on-one. So I do largely one-on-one. I also do group coaching. I run workshops for companies when they're interested in that. I'm doing that this Friday in San Francisco. So I love so much helping people present. There's so many people out there that have like these wonderful ideas. And man, if I've learned anything going all around the world with this stuff, it's like the ideas that get adopted are not the best ideas. They're the best ideas that are communicated well. And if you think about it, that's true not just for products, devices, but it's like those are people who get elected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not, I don't know. I've been thinking, like, talking about election stuff with people, and
Sure.
I'm like, can you imagine if this were a regular job, or where people submitted their resume? But that's not how it is.
Right.
So communication affects all this stuff. I remember being in college, all my friends teasing me for being a communications major. I get it. It was definitely easier than biochemistry and stuff. But like at the end of the day, it really matters.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Really quick, I want to make sure we get to this too. If it's a one-stop shop, is it miketalks.co? Is that the website?
Oh, yes. I should also actually name my website.
That's okay.
Miketalks.co.co.
Miketalks.co. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, totally. I send out tips on presenting all the time. Some great freebies for you on the site. But yes, thank you for reminding me a basic concept, Matt.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. So I don't want to derail you, but yeah, no, it's so true. I was reminded of my wife and I. We sold our house here a few years ago, and we had 4 realtors come because we had a super hot house in the sense of like it was like the only house in this huge development, and people were just like calling us all the time. Hey, you want to sell? You want to sell? So we had the first realtor come through. Sweet guy, nice guy, but he was weird, and I don't know how else to say that. I mean, he was just an odd kind of weird guy. He'd stare a little too long. His eyes were open just a little bit too big. You know, not like serial
an
killer.
Extra half second between talking. Yeah, I know exactly the type. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like, sweet guy, but and I'm sure he's a great realtor. But we actually ended up going with the other couple because they just reminded us of a couple from SNL, and I'm just like, this is like a husband and wife couple. I'm like, these people are just, I can't believe these are real people. This is incredible, and they were great, and we sold our house. It was great. But yeah, so I say all that to say, if you can't connect with people, if you can't communicate, if you get all stiff and weird and rigid and you can't talk to people, then what are we doing here? Because it's kind of important based on human interaction, I would say.
Yeah.
So tell me more about your backstory. We got the plugs out of the way. Love to hear more about your backstory. Anything you want to share with us you think would be pertinent, we want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a long time to figure out what to do in life because I didn't know that speeches were a thing that your career could be based on.
Yeah.
But when I look back at it, like that was a thread going back all the way to elementary school. I loved show and tell. Everybody else at the front, like super nervous.
Yep.
Basically speaking to the object that they brought in. Like that's where their eye contact is.
Right.
I always found it really natural. I never knew it was something I could do for a job. I was fortunate enough to be, when I was in grad school, I was teaching a class, and I had a guy from Nike who was in my class, and he came up to me during a break and he said, Mike, I'm in charge of bringing people in to speak at Nike. We'd love to bring you in sometime.
Wow.
So first of all, that's where it doesn't happen to anybody, but I mean, that is a true story, but I'm just saying like, that's not something that really happens to people.
Right.
But I'm like, okay.
Did you have to ask them like, what do you want me to talk about? Or did they give you a topic or?
Yeah, no. Funny you should say that. Yeah. So he was like, you can talk about whatever you want. But at this point, Matt, I didn't have anything to talk about. I had not done groundbreaking research. I'm literally in graduate school.
Well, he must have saw something. I mean,
well, he did.
He
mean? Saw me do a great. So this is like 2010.
Okay.
Twitter and LinkedIn are relatively new. He saw me do a lesson on how to use both of those sites. He thought it was really good. Which in hindsight, I guess, was because like most people, when they do those lessons, they just say, click here, click here, click here, click here. And even on something like using LinkedIn, there should be a story around it. I guess that must be what he saw. So then I have to come up with a topic. He's like, well, you could do a lesson on LinkedIn, but I'm thinking to myself,
what?
I have one chance to present at Nike.
Yeah.
Anybody in the whole company can go. Like, it's literally in Steve Prefontaine Hall.
Wow.
I'm like, I don't want to talk about LinkedIn.
Right.
So I like hemmed and hawed for a few phone calls. This is how arbitrary my success is. I could not come up with a topic. I hopped on the phone with one of my buddies from college, and I'm like, John, what should we, like, give me a topic. Like, literally, I asked my buddy, what should I talk about? I will do whatever you say. And he said, well, what I hear him say is the Tower of Story. I don't know what that is. I'm picturing a college textbook that has a tower, and then it's like figure 3-1, the Tower of Story.
Yeah, yeah.
So I get on the phone with Nike people. I'm all confident. Hey, I'd like to talk about the Tower of Story. And they're like, oh, the Power of Story. Like, really pronounce the P. Like, oh my gosh. Power, not tower, you idiot. Yes. The story's very powerful. They're saying things like that. Get off the phone. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank heavens this wasn't face to face. But made it through, created a presentation that was, when I look back at it, was fine. I mean, it was a B+. If I were to watch it again now, I would have a million suggestions for that speaker. Mm-hmm. But the important thing from that, well, two things. Number one, Nike was impressive to people. And number two, that enabled me, because Nike was impressive, I was able to get the attention of this company called Duarte, which is in the Bay Area. I had never been to Silicon Valley before. I didn't know that Mountain View, California was Silicon Valley. I thought Silicon Valley would be like Silicon Valley, California. I didn't know that there's no city named that.
An actual mailing address. That's awesome. I didn't know that either. Totally. I'm learning a ton already. It's been 4 minutes.
So I got in touch with them. I don't need to give you the whole long story, but it was really good timing. They needed people. They were just starting their academy, and they needed people who knew the value of story and could teach it. Both were things that I could do. So they had this long process to get trained. Studied my tail off to do that. I remember the first time I delivered a workshop. So it was for Levi's jeans in San Francisco, right near Fisherman's Wharf. At the time, I thought this was like the most impressive thing I was going to do in my life, was deliver a workshop to Levi's. Mm-hmm. They've got like this awesome history museum in the first floor of like all their jeans stretching back to whatever year. And I go in there. I've learned this whole workshop, 270 slides. Some of them are like pretty lengthy, the descriptions. I feel confident that I know it. Go through the whole day. And at the end of the day, I've made it through. I haven't forgotten anything. And I'm watching people exit. And I'm seeing people that are spent. Like, just exhausted. At the time, Duarte used paper surveys. So I'm looking at the paper surveys. Everybody's supposed to rank me 1 to 5 in a bunch of different categories. And I'm mostly 3s and 4s.
Is 5 the best or 1 the best?
Yeah, 5's the best.
Okay.
I have some 5s. I think it's more 4s than anything else, but I'm seeing some 3s and run it by my boss, and he's like, oh, this is really good for a first time. But what was etched in my brain was the look on people's faces. And I had this stunning realization, like, we're going to spend 8 hours together. And by the way, I taught an 8-hour workshop, sometimes 16 over 2 days. But I would say this is true for whether it's 15 minutes, an hour, 8 hours, 16 hours. We're going to spend a length of time together. And I was so focused on getting the information right. But for the audience, like, it needs to be fun. Yeah. It needs to matter. And I don't, like, obviously not every topic lends itself to fun, but it needs to be impactful. It needs to be interesting. It needs to be presented in a way that the audience remembers it. Sure. And it was like, after that first workshop, I mean, that was the ultimate light going off for me. Oh, it's not just about the information. So yeah, learned that. Taught at Duarte for 7 years, I believe.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, flew all over the world. I have 1.1 million miles on Alaska Airlines, like, literally.
Wow.
I mean, it got to the point, I mean, even today, like my friend Alex was going to San Francisco. He called me last week. He's like, hey, do you have a hotel recommendation for San Francisco? And my brain is just able to process that. I've had people call me like, hey, I have to connect through O'Hare. What restaurant should I go to? Like that. These are not like great things to have in your brain, but like that's how much flying I was doing.
Wow.
But
you're like a concierge, like an international concierge.
Totally, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit funny to be like, oh, do you know at London Heathrow when blah 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 happens? But
yeah,
I love that. I love traveling, but there reached a point where I needed to step out on my own. I needed to be home more for my wife, and our child was born in June. So
that's cool.
First time dad.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be home more. So yeah, these days coach people one-on-one, group coaching, all the things I said at the beginning.
No, that's so interesting. Yeah, because I'm thinking about how you can make anything interesting for 8 hours. And I know that's possible, but that's super ambitious, to make something that seems really challenging to me personally, but I don't know. I don't do what you do.
Well, for sure. I mean, but I learned tricks along the way. And one of the things that was cool is I just had a personality where I was like, okay, I'm going to experiment with this. What if I say this section a little bit differently? Mm-hmm. What if I drop a story in at this point? What if I experiment with the way that I answer people's questions? I think I'm pretty proud of having that attitude, because it would have been really easy to mail it in.
Sure. Nobody
in the audience would know the difference. And frankly, one of the things about public speaking, like the bar is really low. It's one of the encouragements I try to offer to people is like the bar is really low. I bring that up right now just because when I'm presenting a workshop at a company, like they're not expecting all that much. So it would have been really easy to mail it in, but I never wanted to.
Yeah, that's super fun. I think about, there was a company that I was a part of for a while called Deluxe Business Systems. They're the red and black box of checks. And so I worked in preventative maintenance, did midnights, things like that. And we would do these monthly meetings, and there'd be a person up there that would just read these lists and rules and reminders from an 8.5 by 11 sheet. It was super boring. It was like an hour long. And so I approached the plant manager. I was like, would I be able to could we film something where it's like reminding these people of don't leave drinks here, and make sure, everybody checks in. And so and just throw music on it and make it funny or just something. And they loved it. And so we ended up doing this is back in the day, but we ended up doing 4 or 5 DVDs with 3 or 4 different little things to share and teach and remind them about. And it was so fun because it was funny, and then it would stick in their brains, and the music and things like that. So it was pretty effective versus the 8.5 by 11 sheet. But I was like, I don't know how else to do this. I feel like I would be against who I am just to read this. Maybe if I really, really didn't care, I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. I'm just doing it for a paycheck or whatever. But I did care, and I thought it helped people understand more.
Well, it definitely helped people understand more. Are you kidding? They actually remembered it after they left the room.
Yeah, and we did probably a lot of things wrong copyright-wise early in the day. I think I did. I do remember playing a Sanford & Son song while it was the opening of Sanford & Sons, while this guy was eating tons of different food at the printing press, which was a no-no, of course. And yeah, there's so many copyright things we broke, but hey, it's okay. It's a long time ago. The statute of limitations is probably passed. So
yeah.
But I'm already super interested, and I have to be careful because I'm a podcaster and I love conversation. I love to ask questions. I'd rather, be interested than interesting personally. But I want to talk today. We mentioned off air about this topic is intriguing to me, and everyone that has been listening so far can see this topic, but it says your public speaking anxiety might not be about public speaking. And that sounds very intriguing and loaded to me, and I cannot wait to get into it.
Let's do it. Yeah. So now that I have a child, I don't really go to parties anymore. But when I meet people out in the world,
right,
wherever that might be, when I'm talking to my dog, when they hear that I help with presentations, there'll usually be some sort of response like, oh, I'm not good at presenting. I say, or, oh, so-and-so is a really good presenter. And whenever I get they're a really good presenter response, I say, well, what makes them good? And Matt, one of the things I've realized is that what I know goes into a great presenter / presentation is a lot different from what most people think it is. Because to me, there are actually definitely 2 and perhaps 3 facets to a great presenter. So there are the words that person actually says.
Okay.
The script they're following, the content, whatever term you want to attach to that. There's that.
Mm-hmm.
there's the way they are saying it.
Okay.
There's that. And then this last one depends, but certainly in the corporate environment, this is almost always true. There are their slides. So those are three things that most people think of as one nebulous, that's the good presenter. I bring this up because, we've all heard the stat about public speaking being the number one fear, which, first of all, I question that. Like,
yeah, if you can be a good public speaker, you've beaten death, essentially, is the perception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and then still people don't do it. It's crazy.
The way I always say it is, like, nobody who's in a den of vipers is sitting there like, well, at least I'm not giving the Q4 update right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Like, that is not actually true.
I would love to make a list, like a top 10 list or a blog post. Maybe you've already done this about, what's the top 10 fears that you would say as a professional public speaker and teacher that are above, it's speaking and then it's death. Like that'd be a fun list to talk about sometime or to read.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way that speaking is actually number one, but it's interesting that that's what jumps to mind for people when they answer that. So
yeah.
Point being, there is certainly anxiety around presenting, but here's the deal. Like, there are all kinds of things that you person who's anxious about speaking, there are all kinds of things that that are affecting your presentation, and you might not realize it, but that is what's actually building the anxiety. So like, basic one, if there's too much on your slides, people are reading your slides and they're not listening to you. So if you have too much on your slides, by the way, too much, I would say, is more than like 10 words, or it's a chart that's complicated. If you have more than that on your slides, you actually don't even have slides. You have a sign overhead that says, don't listen to what I'm saying out loud. So now you're presenting to a group of people who aren't listening to you. They're trying to figure out your slides.
Right.
Nobody's looking at you. You're sitting there and nobody's smiling at you. Nobody's looking at you. And you're thinking, oh, I'm not good at this. Oh, I hate presenting. Oh, I'm so anxious right now.
Right.
Like, that's what's happening to you.
Right.
And in that example, it wasn't even like the real culprit was your slides. So that's just a really common one. Anyone in the corporate world, I went all over the world with this stuff for 7 years. There were like 4 companies where that wasn't the case. I kept waiting for the time that I would go in and they would say, oh, we know this already.
Right.
Never happened.
Right.
I mean, there were companies that were good at slides, but I never had someone that was like, yeah, I get all this already. This is a waste. Like, not once did that happen.
There was a quick slide that made me think of this, what you're saying. And you probably never had this experience before, but a friend of mine I used to know, he was actually a really great illusionist. And so he had these shows in Vegas and he would travel nationally, things like that.
Wait, hold on. Illusionist?
Yes.
Is that a magician? Or are we not allowed to say that word?
Well, now, see, that's the thing. I called him a magician. He's like, it's illusionist. So you got to know the difference, or we've already lost half of our audience right now by me saying it improperly. But yeah, so he's an illusionist. And he just wanted like some cool Chinese writing, And so he purchased this giant backdrop that would be like the length of the back wall. And the one time, when he was in Vegas at one of his shows, some of the people that were Asian Americans started laughing, and he didn't understand why. He's kind of losing the room. Like, this, what's so funny? This is supposed to be this intense moment. Well, the Chinese writing said, "Please do not urinate in the alley." Was on the sign behind him, which was incredible. So as soon as you said the too many words on a slide, or it's too technical or whatever, made you think of that. So I just had to throw that in there. But yeah, that actually happened to him. So be careful if you're going to put up any kind of Asian writing or any different language that you understand what it says.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah. So don't do that either.
Yeah.
But overall point, like, slides torpedo a lot of presentations, and it would be great if you could just program your brain to say, hey, it's not about you, it's the slides, and my company forces me to use this type of slide. But like, the fact of the matter is, if you have too much on your slides, it's killing your presentation and it's killing your confidence. And that's why you're saying public speaking is your number one fear.
That's really good. Really good.
That's one of them. I mean, another one is a classic one, is just saying too much, trying to cram too much into an hour. That happens all the time. Anytime the presentation itself is not clear, you are going to see quizzical looks on the faces of your audience. For most people, it's not really a confidence boost to see people with wrinkled noses and people on their phones because they've checked out. Like that doesn't.
Right. Not a confidence booster. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a confidence booster. And that's why you say public speaking is the number one fear. Another one's more basic. I mean, I know I've dealt with this one before where I'm thinking of a branch of the US government where he didn't say as much, but he alluded, like there's this guy in the back of the room that's got a suit on. And he alluded to the fact that maybe he killed someone before, like not like murder, but you know what I mean? Like he was I'm trying to not say any more details, but
it was Steven Seagal. It's fine. It's totally fine.
But a lot of times people just don't have a good look on their face.
Yeah.
And we all walk in the room and we desire for our audience members to have like this big smile on their face.
Yes, I'd love that.
Oh my gosh, Mike is here. I can't wait to hear from him. I'm gonna have this smile on my face for 8 straight hours.
Yes.
This sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but on some level, that's what a lot of us present. I mean, frankly, that's not what most people look like.
That's a good point.
And sometimes you have people who are really intimidating. People sitting there with crossed arms, wearing suits. And it's real easy to look at that person and say, oh my gosh, this guy's arms are crossed. He's wearing a suit. Therefore, I'm no good at this.
Right.
And it took me a while because I am such a, to use Enneagram language, I'm such a 9. I'm so conflict averse that I look at someone like that and I feel bad. I feel like I'm wasting their time. It took me a long time to realize that I just need to buckle down when I see that.
Okay. That's good. Yeah.
And sometimes it's buckle down, meaning I need to have a better, or not a better attitude, but sometimes it's I need to speak with a deeper voice. I need to own the speech better. Sometimes it's I need to sprinkle in a story right now because it feels tense in the room.
Okay.
Or I can't tell if people are paying attention. The greater point here is sometimes we get speaking anxiety because we look out at people who are looking back at us and they don't have a smile on their face. Well, I mean, if you think about when you are learning something,
right?
I don't know. I don't sit there learning things with a giant smile on my face. Like that's not the default for most people.
Yeah, maybe it's like the Joker people, or something would be just,
right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, people do. I'm not saying that people won't smile at all. Mm-hmm. If you are delivering a fun presentation, a funny presentation, that will happen, but it's not going to happen for the duration. Mm-hmm. So you look out at the audience, someone's not smiling back at you. You have to dig deep. I like to have a statement in my back pocket that I can turn to in those moments and just say, nope, I'm not going to let this guy, it's usually a guy, I'm not going to let this guy affect my mood. He's not going to affect my confidence.
So really quick question on that. How misleading are faces? Is it like, I'll never trust a face, or is that a good litmus test? Is it like 50-50? What would you say?
There are people who are extremely good at reading body language, but even them, it's not going to be 100% of the time, or even like that close to it. So I don't know. If you took like one of Vanessa Van Edwards' courses, maybe you could get really, really good at it or something. But I can't tell you how many times someone had a wrinkled nose that I interpreted as they don't like this whole workshop.
Yeah.
But I plowed on, and then they came up to me during a break to say, hey, this is great.
Oh, man.
And the wrinkled nose was really them trying to piece together, here's what Mike's saying out loud. Here's what my day-to-day looks like. I'm trying to reconcile those two things. Like, that happens all the time. So, I mean, you are wise to recognize that stuff. Certainly someone who's on their phone, it's unlikely that person's paying attention to you. Like, it is good to take note of that stuff. It's good to adjust, but I would encourage you to not sync your own presentation just because one person out there is on their phone.
If someone's on their phone, do you just trick yourself and be like, oh, they're just totally taking notes? That's why they're on their phone.
No, no, because you can tell. Because if they're taking notes, they would be typing fast.
Yeah.
If they're,
that's sad. Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
tough.
Which, I mean, it happens, but more often people are on Facebook and da. But like, even with that, I mean, it'd be really easy to fall into like what I always call feel bad for me mindset. You feel bad for me. That guy's on his phone. I'm not good at this, right? It's really the fall into that mindset.
Sure. Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm on my phone when I'm watching like an awesome movie sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
The developers of phones and apps are paying top dollar to people to figure out how to distract you. So
right. IMDb is my biggest one. I can't stay off IMDb when I'm watching a movie or a show. I'm like, oh, I've seen them before. What are they in?
Yeah,
oh,
where's
okay.
this guy from?
Yeah,
totally.
I can't stop it.
I get it. And again, it's good to adjust to that person. But just because someone is on their phone, and like Matt, I mean, I'm hosting 8-hour workshops. It's realistic that over 8 hours, someone will get on their phone.
Yeah.
You can't let that sink you. You can adjust, but you can't let it sink you.
That's great.
I mean, I think another way that people blame public speaking when it's not public speaking is the way that they begin the talk. The first 5 minutes are crucial.
Okay.
I obsess about the first 5 minutes, both in terms of the tone that I want to bring and what the first words are out of my mouth. If I can win them over, and especially, I mean, when I'm working with people one-on-one, I'm always like, we need to make sure the first sentence is great. So it can't be, hey, I'm Mike. Hey, I came in here from Portland. Oh, it's really nice to be in Minneapolis today. Hey, has anyone here ever been to Portland? Right? Like, this is how so many people start talks. And
yeah,
maybe I'm overdoing it a little right now, but so many people want to tiptoe in. And what you need, and if you do that, you're actually being selfish, because you're not doing that for your audience. You're doing it for yourself.
Wow.
So what you need to do is to push the audience into the pool. So start off with a statistic that might be surprising to them. Start off with a story that might surprise them. It could be a quote. It could be just saying, hey, we have a problem. People in this room, we have a problem. Revenue's down, whatever that is. Start off with something that gets the audience's attention. And now this second part depends a little bit on the type of presentation, but gets the audience's attention and convinces them to like you. Now, if you're presenting in the corporate world, the liking you part has a bunch of other factors to it. But if you're presenting on stage, someplace where the audience doesn't know you yet, the very nature of constructing a beginning that is creative, that's put thought into the first line, that might be funny, that tells a story that's about you, but is really about the audience, anything like that, the audience will like you, the room will lighten up, and it will be much easier to proceed. Because here's the deal. Most people, when they are seated in a presentation, sitting there waiting for it to start, on some level, everybody's asking the same thing. Is this going to be worth my time? Is this good?
Yeah.
So in the first 5 minutes, and 5 is an arbitrary number, but really the first minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, first 5 minutes, convince them this is a good talk. The whole room will lighten up, and that will be a completely different experience for you.
Quick question on that.
Yeah.
I know how it affects me, but how does it affect you when someone opens a speech with Webster's dictionary defines synergy as, and then they read the definition?
Man.
Is that like such a rookie mistake, or what are your thoughts on that?
Do people still do that?
Yeah. Okay. There's my answer. Okay.
Well, no.
They do. But I just feel like it's
your deeper question is about like cliches to start.
Yeah, like, and I appreciate that, because I do like to know actually, because there's a lot of times where I thought I knew what a word meant, and I'm like, oh, that actually wasn't what it meant. You know, I used it wrong or whatever. So I like that, but I just feel like whenever it started that way, or even in the middle, I always feel like, is there a better way to portray that?
Boring. People have heard that a million times. There's a better way of accomplishing that same goal.
Okay.
And Matt, you just alluded to it without realizing it, is people think that word X means blank, but actually it means blank. So I literally today, like right now, there was a speaker who I helped with her. She won a major award. I know that sounds like the Christmas story, but it actually was a major award.
It was in the leg lamp. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things we talked about was integrity. Well, when people hear the word integrity, I mean, that's a heavy word, but people think of integrity as basically meaning telling the truth. But there's more to it than that. Integrity also means living completely whole, undivided. So Matt, you could start the talk that way. Very first line. When people hear the word integrity, I think most of us think of integrity as meaning basically telling the truth all the time. And that's part of it, but really there's more. Like, so if you were to start that way, I'm not saying it's the very best you could ever come up with, but that is so much more effective than Webster's dictionary defines blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Just can't use the first words Webster, but no, that's great. Because you're taking kind of what they may know, they can identify with, and then actually kind of adjusting it in a fun way. That is really good. Okay.
So the first 5 minutes, and I have here's the plug for you. I have a whole ebook on that very idea, or PDF. I should say PDF. I have a whole PDF on that very idea. That is the thing that when I'm working with people one-on-one, that's the thing that I feel like for which I am best known. And it is an essential part of the talk that most people gloss over.
Mm-hmm. That's good. And I'm sure is the ending important too, I would say. I don't want to rush you, but.
Yeah, no, the ending is also important. And it's so funny that you should even bring that up, because so one of the mistakes that people make, this is straying off topic slightly, but one of the mistakes that people make is they write the speech in order. So first thing I work on is the intro, then point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, blah, 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 blah. And then finally I make the conclusion. Well, here's the problem. By the time you hit the conclusion or the outro, whatever terminology you want to use, you are exhausted and you hate writing. You don't want to make that good anymore.
Wow.
So here's a better strategy. Write the body of the talk first. Take a break. I mean, if you can take a day or two from it, like that's even better, but take a break. Come back and write the intro and outro at the same time.
Okay.
So that, because that way you are intentionally trying to open up a gap at the beginning, and the ending should be showing the gap closed. Like, here's what the world could look like if that gap were closed. But if you're doing intro and outro at the same time, you can see that. Versus if you're writing the whole thing in order, by the time you hit the outro part, you've forgotten how you started it.
Yeah. And you've been writing for who knows how long, and you're just
right.
like, yeah, I just want to wrap this up. I'm almost done.
Let's go. You hate it. You're just, totally. Like, I just want to get this over with.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
And that's another reason why people don't like presenting. Because what you should be doing is leaving the audience wanting more. You should be ending with something that's, if not inspiring, at least you've put a lot of thought into how you can leave the audience with a picture of what the world could look like with your idea adopted. Like, that's what you should be striving for. But I mean, comedians talk about leaving the stage on their best joke, leaving the audience wanting more.
Sure.
Yeah. What a lot of presenters do metaphorically is they leave the audience with no joke, like on their worst joke. They leave by saying, and that's it. Any questions?
Right.
Corporate world, that's like I just described every single corporate presentation. That's my last slide. What questions do you have? There's no energy in that whatsoever.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's all coming back to me. I've heard all these different good and bad examples you've mentioned.
So I have one more one more thing that I would say for people who have public speaking anxiety and blame it on public speaking. This gets into like psychological issues as to why it happens. But one of the reasons why people have public speaking anxiety is because they're not breathing the way they should. So those things are linked. I don't know. This might be a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing, but if you think about what happens when you hyperventilate, like literally you are not taking full breaths, right? You're taking a bunch of short breaths. It's what a lot of people do in a presentation. But the reason why it happens in a presentation is because they have written long sentences, or they haven't rehearsed and they're speaking in long sentences.
Okay.
So if you speak in a long sentence, like, Matt, I'll just keep speaking in a long sentence right now. I'm going to talk and I'm going to talk and I'm going to talk, and I'm eventually going to run out of air.
Right.
I dramatize that a little bit. You won't always hear the presenter exhale.
Yeah.
But sometimes you will. And when the presenter exhales, or when they run out of air, it produces like this panicky feeling for you internally.
Sure.
What a lot of people will do is they will talk and talk and talk. They will never, ever, ever put a period on the end of a sentence. So it'll end up talking like this and talking, and talk some more. And so talk some more. So talk some more. Like, I'm running out of air, and I'm blaming public speaking, but actually it's because I have written really long sentences, or I'm speaking in really long sentences. I am not allowing myself to take a breath of air. I'm not telling you need to take this deep breath where you're like, point number 2. Like, that's not what it's called.
Very dramatic. Yeah.
But take a breath. It will help you to relax. It will help you as you move forward. So let me say that a little bit better. If you speak in shorter sentences, breathing will come more naturally, and you will not be producing this internal panic, this internal anxiety that comes when you're speaking in really long sentences and not allowing yourself to breathe.
Do you think it could be from two things? One is that people, the way they speak is different than how they write. If someone were following me around my normal day when I'm relaxed and comfortable communicating accurately or appropriately or whatever, I'm wondering, and this could be wrong, but I'm wondering when you sit, there's that version versus like the transcription version versus me like sitting down and not even speaking my speech yet. Let me just write it all out. And then I'm finding that my writing is a long sentence, but it's like, you don't talk like this normally. Like you never write or have sentences this long. Does that make sense?
Maybe. Are you asking if, like, basically if you were to write shorter sentences, if your speaking would follow that?
Yeah. Like, is your writing style different from your speaking style? Like when you write, should you think in that same voice of your own voice?
If you are writing for a presentation, most people would benefit from writing the way that they will speak.
Okay.
So
sync it up.
Actually, Matt, that's an interesting point. I was just helping an executive with this very thing where he had the self-awareness to say, hey, Mike, I'm writing like a writer. Can you turn this into speech language? I was like, Al, I would love to.
Wow. Yeah.
Most people, when they are writing for a speech, connect things with a bunch of commas, long sentences. It can work. I'm not saying it can't, but you're going to make your life easier if your sentences are short.
Okay.
7 to 10 words. And if you can't write 7 to 10 word sentences, try to take a breath after 7 to 10 words. And you can do that pretty naturally. Any sentence where there's a comma, like I realize that people aren't going to sit there with their script in front of them and put a little carrot saying, take a breath here, take a breath here. But anytime that there is a comma, a period, period would be obvious. It's the end of a sentence. But anytime there's a comma, it's real natural to take a breath.
Yeah. That's like your time. Oh, they do it with sheet music too. When people read in choirs and things like that, they write all those breaths in, and people have to have staggered breathing so that the note, elongates and keeps going.
Back in the day, I get this would still be the case, but I'm thinking of CD liners. Remember when you get a CD and would have the lyrics inside the liner notes?
Oh yeah, yeah.
They don't just write them as a big paragraph.
Right.
Most people would benefit from writing their speech as if it were more like lyrics to a song. So I don't know why I felt the need to force that to be about CDs.
I love it. I'm 40, so I get it, and I appreciate it. That was perfect for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but like, do you think people have run-on sentences because they're uncomfortable with silence?
Yes.
Okay. Because I've experienced that where I'm like, they talk about the pregnant pause and waiting 3 seconds or 4 seconds. It seems like an eternity, but you're like, it's okay. Slow down. Like I'll tend to talk too fast. Maybe you've already noticed it. I don't know. Maybe my audience has noticed that for the last 4 years I've been doing this, but I have to be very intentional that I slow down, because I think sometimes I can, the negative side of it would be like, well, what I'm saying isn't as important, so I'm going to just go quick and get out of the way. And I don't want to bother anybody. Oh, okay. Now what were you going to say? It's like, no, I read a book recently. I forget what the quote was, but it was, I forget what the book was, but the quote was, we are just two important people sitting down to talk to each other. So it's not like, well, Mike is this guy and I've just got this podcast and I'm in Ohio and I've never been to Oregon or, whatever. It's like, I've never been international. I don't have a million miles. Like, so you talk it out of it. And it's just like, no one wants to be around somebody who's insecure. Nobody wants to listen to an insecure leader or an insecure presenter. So it's like, we're just two important people sitting down to have a conversation, which to me, gutturally would be like, oh, geez, you're calling yourself important. Like, not like heady or arrogantly, but just like, no, like we both matter. So.
Well, Matt, you did name something important there. I mean, you notice your own behavior when you're not feeling like what you're saying is important. And I think most people are like this. You try to rush to get it out. So, okay, cool. Now Matt can talk.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, two important people sitting down to have a conversation with something to say.
Great.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah. So that's been helping me. But I've noticed that too, because like I work a lot with, if I'm ever communicating, I'm learning, I'm trying to get better all the time, but I'll communicate with smaller groups. I'm communicating on the podcast over this medium. Then there's times where I'm sharing information like at my church, things like that, or sharing a sermon or whatever. And I found that people, when they're delivering information out in the lobby, when they're sharing that same information with me, they're like pretty relaxed. It's very conversational. Yeah. But then when they get up on a stage and there's lights and they have a microphone and they can hear their voice in the house, they're like, they get all weird. And I'm like, just talk to me like you just told me what you told me in the lobby.
Right.
Like, why did you get all weird when you went up 4 steps and now you're slightly higher than everybody else? Like, what happened to you?
Actually, Matt, can I tell you a quick story on that?
Always. You can talk as long as you want to. So.
here's a tip for you, because I don't know. I'm good at presenting. I'm totally comfortable with it. I try to put myself in the mindset of, I'm like, okay, well, what is like a nightmare for me? So karaoke is a nightmare for me. When I'm trying to help someone who doesn't like speaking, I try to remind myself, this is like someone giving me lessons on karaoke.
That's great.
So don't dismiss the way people are feeling.
Sure.
And it's possible that people are listening to this and thinking like, yeah, you're making this sound too easy. Most audience members, what they want is for you to be on stage and feel like a friend who has thought through their topic. That's what we want.
Okay.
So great thing to do would be to be the same person on stage as you were out in the lobby when you were talking to Matt. That would be a great thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, and I'm not saying this for everybody, but for some people, it would actually benefit them to take on a different persona. So let me, I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I like sharing this story. You know, Philadelphia, I think, was the first capital of the US, very historical city. So there are all these actors that play the roles of George Washington. That's the only famous person I can think of, apparently. There are all these people.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Well, no, because what I was trying to build to is my friend Nate, his mom dated the guy who played Ben Franklin.
Oh, this is amazing.
So
already.
I would go over Nate's house after school, and Ben Franklin would be there.
Of course.
And like, he was always in character.
Are you serious? Daniel Day-Lewis style.
He dressed like Ben Franklin. Like, he dressed like Ben Franklin.
Oh man.
He carried a cane around with him, which later in life he actually needed. But like when I was there, he didn't need a cane, but he had like the old colonial wear that he would generally be dressed in.
This is crazy.
No, this is going to blow your mind. His name was Ralph, but he asked to be called, he was like, you can call me Ben.
Okay. Okay, Ben.
He became a big Ben Franklin fan because they had the same birthday, and he learned that growing up.
Oh, okay.
So Ben Franklin was always at Nate's house.
Okay.
The end of this story is that Ben Franklin and Nate's mom eventually broke up, and this is going to sound like a joke, but I'm dead serious about this. He ended up getting married to the woman who played Betsy Ross.
Oh my gosh.
Here's why I'm bringing this up, though.
Oh my gosh.
For a long time, I was always like, dude, what is the deal with that guy?
Right.
Why would you? He wants me to call him Ben, blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, that guy doesn't even have his own identity. But what took me a long time to understand was that I bet he was making his life easier because he could act like someone else. And for some speakers who get on stage and freeze up or don't know how they're supposed to act, a good word of advice would be act like your friend who's good at presenting.
Wow.
Or act at the person at the company who's good at presenting. How would that person act?
Wow, that's great.
How would Kelly act? How would Hallie act? How would Laura act? Present like that person.
Huh.
I mean, it's not that easy, but for a lot of people, that mindset shift actually changes the game because they feel uncomfortable on stage, but them acting as Laura feels totally comfortable.
Wow. That's got to be a challenge, but I'm sure it helps. You know what I mean? Like just kind of becoming another person, like Master of Disguise. Have you seen that movie? It's pretty terrible. With
the Dana Carvey movie?
Carvey, yeah. Become another person. Yeah. That's what I think of. That's amazing.
But I'm not saying everybody should do that, but just if you're struggling,
sure,
maybe just one day when you're rehearsing, be like, how would Laura do this part?
Right.
How would Brian do this part? I'm just naming names of people at this point, but
yeah.
How would good speaker X do this part?
Right. Wow. And it's not, and it's almost just studying them as far as like their body language, how expressive they are, voice inflection, body language, things like that. You would just kind of study them.
Well, it can be that, but honestly, a lot of the time it's just giving you permission to think of someone besides yourself. Mm-hmm. So it does not need to be like sitting down with video, looking at Michelle Obama and be like, oh, wow, her voice inflection was really good here. Like that's...
Then people think you're doing an impression.
But,
yeah.
But sometimes it's just trying to act like someone else is easier than being yourself.
Wow. That's super deep, man. That's like, I think a lot of people do that.
Like I don't think that's good in life.
Right. No,
but
but
on stage, for some people, that's the whole battle.
Yeah.
Is they don't like the attention on them, or they don't feel like they are good at it. So if they think of themselves as being more like someone else, it's easier.
Yeah. Well, I would say just personally with me, there's been times where, I think I've done the show now for about 4.5 years. And I remember when I would do my intros before, and I'd be like, welcome back to Entreneato. I'm your host, Matt Neff. Hey, and I would get weird on the mic or something like that, but I'm usually not that muted. I'm a 7. I'm usually more extroverted and outgoing, things like that, a little bit louder. And I would find myself and listen back to it. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I should match the energy that I normally am. Like, I got super weird. Like, and I think here's the thing. And if I could just make this all about me for just 30 seconds, it's finding the tension between I run like a business entrepreneurial podcast and feeling the pressure of like, oh, I have to be this serious, learned business guy versus like, I also have the same birthday as Jim Carrey as well, January 17th. So I love Jim Carrey. So I have this teasing, like a back and forth
the day
tension.
after Ben Franklin, by the way. Sorry, keep going.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think it's January 16th. Sorry, keep going.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
We'll have more on famous people's birthdays right after this. Sorry, keep going.
Here's a break from stamps.com. But that tension of like, no, I have to be serious. No, I have to be fun. I need to be myself, or I need to be outgoing, all these different things. And so there's this tension that I feel at times when I'm trying to do like an intro or interview people. And I'm just like, I have to make myself like, makes you speak up and makes you bring like more energy. Because you normally would all the other times, but then you got like weird and quiet, or you mumbled too much or something. You know what I mean? I have to tell myself, speak up. Like I did it today at Chipotle when I ordered. It's like, makes you speak up. I was like, oh yeah, can I get a so.
Man, that happens to people a lot. And when that especially happens is when they're saying their own name. My name's Matt.
Right.
Listen to your voicemail. I almost guarantee that it's like that.
That's depressing. I'm going to change it right after this.
What you should do is you should say your name as if it is the last thing that you were going to say, and then you're going to drop the mic.
Wow. Because like you're proud of your name.
Yeah.
And you're proud of who you are.
Well, and presumably that's a name that matters to the audience, especially if you're presenting at a conference, something like that.
Right. Right. It's like, you don't care. Like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that people have. Like, no, we do care. Like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Eeyore syndrome. Okay. That's excellent. Man, I've learned so much today. I don't want to keep you too long. This has been amazing, though.
I'm all paranoid. People are going to think I'm telling them to act like someone else. I'm just saying if it's hard for you, that's sometimes a good starting point.
Yes.
In general, I think it's good to be who you are.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I see what you're saying. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, it's not like if you overcourse correct, that would be like a sociopath. That's like... So anybody that listens to that totally changes from now on and you're never the same again, that's not right. You need to get medical attention and mental counseling because you're having an issue. No, but I totally got what you're saying. And it really makes sense. I would say, I almost think about like everything with the Enneagram. Like if you're like a 1 or a 2 or 3, like I would think 7s, well, especially extroverts, but I would think like 7s, 8s, and 9s. Maybe 7s and 8s would kind of be naturally that way. But then you have to mix in the extrovert and the introvert, with that. So maybe it's like if you're more introverted, you have to kind of become another person just for when you get on stage for that moment.
Maybe. Well, see, this is a misconception though. Introverts are better presenters than extroverts.
Really?
The best presenters are introverts. I'm not saying that given the whole population, an introvert would be better than an extrovert.
Sure.
But the best presenters are introverts, yeah.
Wow.
Because think about it, Matt, you can get on stage 5 minutes from now. Maybe you'll have some level of anxiety just because you're unprepared, but that's not going to crush you.
Right.
Because, hey, I'm mad and I have all this energy and da da da.
Yeah.
But an introvert wants to think through every last word they're going to say. And winging it is a nightmare. Extroverts
That's
love
so funny.
it.
Winging it is a nightmare. That's amazing. That sounds so funny to me, how it hit my 7 years. I'm sorry. That's great, though.
Yeah, no, because you love winging it. Yeah, it's like a bit of a challenge for you. It's probably fun.
Yeah, I don't like to give myself time to get nervous is the big thing. Like, I don't want to think about it. Like, if I have to speak or do something or sing, I'm like, I don't want to think about it for 8 hours. And then like, okay, I got to go sing or I got to go speak.
Yeah, that's a classic 7 thing.
Okay. Whoops.
Yeah. No, that's my friends who are 7s. I'm like, will you please rehearse?
Yes.
I don't know anything about your presentation style, but I bet you don't rehearse.
Well, and it's interesting because I'm noticing too that my 7, when I'm under pressure, it feels like a 1. So I'll find myself kind of, I don't know, maybe it's the 6 wing, the loyalist or whatever, the worst case scenario thinking. I think that kind of pulls me down from being like this kite that just like takes off, I think it's a 50-50 split. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, we'll just wing it. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, what am I saying? What's my transitional sentence? What's my point? I don't know.
So winging it is I don't want to say it's the very worst thing you can do, because that's not true, but it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
People love winging it because if you wing it, then there's nothing to judge you against. There's no script that you should have followed.
Yeah. So true.
You really like can't have as many of the regrets as someone who scripted out the whole thing and then forgot to say something.
Right.
But I would say a couple things to that. Number one, nobody in the audience knows what you're supposed to say. But number two, the greatest gift that you can give your audience is being present with them. But you can't do that if you're sitting there and your brain is a half second ahead of the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the classic person who's winging it. They're not present with the audience. But the greatest gift you can give is being present with your audience, being able to adjust to them on the fly, being able to, when you misspeak, being able to make a joke of it, being able to play around with someone in the audience, not play around, but being able to interact with someone in the audience. Like, those are things you can do when you are present with them. But when you are trapped in your own brain because you're winging it, or because you're paranoid that you're going to forget a word from the quote unquote perfect script that you wrote that nobody in the audience has a copy of, you can't be present.
That's so great. I love that the people in the audience don't have a script. They don't know what you're going to say. That's so freeing.
And like, none of it, I don't know, man. I help people with speeches for a living, and I'm not Shakespeare. The exact wording for most parts of the speech, it is not essential to word things perfectly. There are parts where it is.
Sure.
But most of the speech doesn't need to be worded perfectly. And it's funny. I've worked with a number of speakers who, they get off stage and I say, how did it go? The first words out of their mouth are like, I remembered everything. They might not say it that way, but they're like, I got this part, I got this part, I got this part, I got this part. But the speech is not about you remembering everything correctly.
Yeah.
The speech is about, like, how was that for the audience? And going back to what I learned the very first time I did that workshop at Levi's, like, was that a good experience for them? Because if not, I need to do better next time.
Yeah, because like memorization is not communicating. Essentially, it's just kind of like, it's kind of like you're behind this glass wall, and the audience is on one side, and you're on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good stuff. Really good stuff. Oh. I took a ton of notes. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. This is one of the biggest things that I've been working on and trying to get better at. So I was super excited to have you on the show today. And I know our audience is going to love it too. I'm thinking of all my introverted, extroverted friends, and I'm like, oh, that's so this person, they're going to love this point. They're going to love this point. So I so appreciate your time.
I could talk all day.
Oh, bro, I would love it. It's amazing.
It's either you or my dog.
Yeah, Barkley. Hanging out. That's great. What's your dog's name?
Barkley.
Oh, perfect. Of course it's Barkley. As in Charles, or just?
As in Sir Charles, yeah.
Yeah, nicely done. Closing thought, anything you have to share? It could be anything. It doesn't have to be related to speaking, just anything, observations, something you think that would be cool to share with our audience. We'd love
anything
to hear.
In life. Just
anything. Like just
we can just talk about it.
Random facts.
I think tomatoes are no good. People should stop eating tomatoes.
Tomatoes, okay. I wrote that down.
No, here's my real. That was in my wedding vows. I was like, Jess, I love everything about you. I don't want you to change except for one thing. I want you to stop eating tomatoes.
Wow.
They taste like poison. That's not my final thought, Matt. Here's my final. I said this before. I think I said this. The bar for presenting is really low. It's really low. It's not like trying to get better at learning Facebook algorithms and things like that someone has mastered. And lots of people are really, really good at it. So it's going to be really hard to catch up. Like, most people put little effort into presenting. The bar is really low. Therefore, anything you can do to try to get better is going to be a win. And the power of it is tremendous. I mean, I think of people that I worked with, like I worked with my friend Tarzan. So Tarzan K, last year we worked on the talk. First time she was ever on a stage. She was live at Amy Porterfield's event.
Wow.
Called herself a speaking virgin. We worked really hard at it.
Yeah.
I remember I recorded a voice memo that was like, here's what the voice inflection should sound like. And dude, first of all, totally nails that talk. It leads to, now this is for more than just how good the speech was, but it led to a 6-figure launch for her.
Wow.
And So that's great from a money standpoint, but this is the thing that I actually love the most. All of the little paragraphs and points that she made, all the stories that she told, the examples that she had, those were basically, like we talked last week and she said, that was basically everything I talked about in 2019, whatever year that was.
Mm-hmm.
So she found herself using that same script on podcasts, on videos, on stage. When she would speak again, she would pluck little parts from it. And that's what's awesome. Like if you do this well,
yeah,
the compound interest on it is so, so good. So I know it's a lot easier for me to say than for people to do.
Sure.
It's not like the Matrix where you can just sit there and plug this program in and you just get everything. But man, you can get better fast and people will notice, and it feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
It feels so good because, again, most people aren't good at this stuff.
That's a worthy endeavor for sure. And I'm trying to get better at it all the time. So, hey, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. One more time before we go, would you please promote away anything, books or websites or talks or PDFs, anything you want to share?
Yeah, we're not at the book stage yet. That's
yet is the question.
A year or two down the road.
Okay.
A year or two down the road.
But come back on. Please come back on when the book comes out, and then we can plug it again. That'd be great.
MikeTalks.co. Mike, like my name, Mike, not microphone. MikeTalks.co.co. I send out public speaking tips every single week. I do have that great freebie that I'm really stoked about. How to win the audience over in the first 5 minutes. If you don't do anything else, do that, and your public speaking experience will immediately get better.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. This has been super fun. I laughed a lot and I learned a lot. So I think it's the perfect balance. So thank you again.
That's the goal, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of EntreNeato. We'd like to invite you to visit us on the web at EntreNeato.com, and here's some of the neato things you can expect when you get there. As a token of our appreciation for tuning in, you can download a free audiobook, and that's thanks to our friends at Audible. You can purchase your very own super official, super comfy, and super trendy Neato t-shirt. Looking to take your life and business to the next level? You can sign up for a free coaching call. Have a question or comment for us? You can click contact and connect with us. All of this and more is waiting for you at EntreNeato.com. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to our show and stay current on all the amazing interviews with our Neato guests. Now take what you've learned and apply it and start living your Neato life now.